50 KTRS. Normally we talk to Kathy Helbig here on the show on Thursdays, and she's joining us here. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning.
And we often talk about how wonderful she is. Right?
Not often enough.
Not often enough. Her team is fantastic. Your stager, your photographer.
Takes a village.
Lori, I mean, they're all just really,
Yes.
we're sort of laughing and going through it, and I'm getting pulled in 8,000 directions. But the truth is, you have to trust somebody, right?
Correct.
And they are very trustworthy. They handle me very well. Okay, hey, this is a great dogs playing poker picture.
Yes.
But I think it would look good in the basement. What do you think of that?
Good in that storage room.
Yeah, in your, so you have amassed a wonderful team.
Well, thank you. I think so too.
Yeah. All right.
And trust is important, just like you said.
Oh my goodness, right? I mean, it's not easy getting a house ready for sale no matter what the market's like.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And then buying it on the other side of it's not easy either. What are we talking about today?
Even more, that part right there.
Yeah.
Buying is tough right now, but the good news is that we're hearing from a survey that was done through Zillow and another brokerage that about 1/3 of current millennial homeowners are thinking about putting their house on the market in the next 12 months. I wish it was the next 2 months. But
Next 2 weeks.
Yes, about 44% of Gen Zers are also thinking about selling. We've actually had a lot more calls coming in of people that have been on the fence, and they're just kind of putting their toe in right now saying, well, you know, at least talk to me. Maybe if you have a buyer, maybe if we can come up with some other options, we're starting to move that direction.
So in other words, they're selling their first time home to want to move up, is what you're saying.
Correct. Millennials will be.
Yeah.
We're having all types of sellers starting to call, a little more now than we did last year. Even though there's less inventory now than there was last year, I think there's people that are still sitting there going, gosh, I might want to cash out on this. I don't know. I mean, I really didn't want to move, but
Right.
I feel like I'm crazy if I don't move.
Right.
So I think we will see in the next month or so a little more inventory hit the market. The problem is a lot of that's still going to go into that secret category first and then into
Right.
the coming soon. So that's where you got to go back to making sure you're meeting with your agent or your strategist now. Get your ducks in a row now so that when that inventory hits, you can make sure that you're one of the offers.
So it's interesting that there's a lot of Gen Xers and Gen Z, or Gen Zers, I guess, who are on the sidelines. They're now buying, but the Gen Zers who did buy are looking to move up.
Correct.
Yeah.
And there's also, I don't have it in front of me, there was an article that came out too that was talking about buyers 25 and under, which is a really hard market for them to be in right now, but apparently St. Louis is ranked in the top 6 for the most 25 and under buyers right now. So trying to get affordability for them and help them get into houses is a little bit of a challenge. But
yeah, I would think even though St. Louis, you know, affordable housing being what it is, St. Louis, when you compare it to other markets, is very affordable.
Exactly,
housing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other big thing is just to touch on right now, because I feel like I've got to talk about this probably twice a season, is really utilizing backup contracts right now, whether you're a seller or whether you're a buyer. It is really important because there are definitely contracts of all these people rushing in that are pulling as much off as they can, and then they get uncomfortable.
Right.
Or something falls through. We had a situation where, you know, all these people now are doing not contingent on financing offers, which I've talked before in the past. It doesn't mean it's a cash offer.
Right.
It means it's not contingent on their financing. But what happens if they don't get the financing?
Right.
You cannot get blood out of a turnip, right? So you're sitting there at the closing table with no buyer. So that's a situation that just happened where a really good backup contract could have slid right in there and stole that house. But the people that had bid on our listing didn't want to do the backup offer because they lost.
And they had their feelings hurt and they were wounded.
Had their feelings hurt, and then they could have had an opportunity to slide in and grab that house. Instead, we ended up putting the deal back together so it has a happy ending. But I'm just saying, as a buyer and as a seller, it's more comfortable to have 1 or 2 people in line for you in the backup as a seller. And as a buyer, we're seeing multiple agents talk about utilizing backups more than ever for the first time in their careers and having success with
Right.
it.
Okay, so explain this. You've explained it technically. Every time you sell a house, do you tell the backup, the person who came in second, saying, hey, stick around, we'll see if this thing closes?
I do. Not every agent doesn't, because a lot of agents don't like to mess with backup contracts.
Right.
Either they don't understand it or they don't want to waste their time. So that's the misconception is, I'm not going to do it because it's a waste of my time. But I see it's not a waste of time. About 10 or 15% of the time, so why not? It
Right.
takes you an hour to put a contract together.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is, as a buyer, as a listing comes in, I've got 5 offers, I pick the one, I go back to the other and say, do you wanna negotiate and back up? So we can continue our negotiations while I've got this accepted contract conditioned upon my other contract dying at some point in time, and then it sits. So the advantage for the buyer is that if you negotiate that contract right then and there, you are next in line no matter what happens.
Right.
If you don't, and you do the typical, this is the typical dialogue, oh darn, they didn't pick us, okay, well, let me know if anything looks like it's going south.
Right. Too
Like,
late.
and you're like one of 85 agents. I'm not gonna remember, it's just like, we're not gonna take that effort. And by then, there's also the mental thing of, that's a verbal, I'm still kinda interested. So when I'm negotiating my contract over here, and somebody's maybe asking me for an extension, and I don't have anything solid over here,
Right.
I'm gonna give them the extension versus going back to the drawing board with you and going, hey, did you still wanna try to maybe put that offer together? Let's start renegotiating right now. Oh, let's make sure, we gotta spend a day or two going back and forth. That's not gonna happen. Backup contract, it would.
Can a backup offer be better than the first offer?
It can. Oftentimes it is.
Really?
Yeah. So you're trying to persuade that seller to try to trigger that first one to go away.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it also puts the seller in a stronger position. No, I'm not fixing the stain on the wall because I don't have to.
That's
I
the
got a
piece
buyer
that
right behind
people
you.
forget about. There's a lot of things to get through in the contract. So if you've got this pretty little contract sitting in the back,
Mm.
you're less motivated to make the first one work, if
Yeah.
it's better.
Right.
Now, in this market, some of them are not better. Like, it
Sure.
used to be when
Yeah.
you'd have 1 or 2 people, the second one would really come in and just fight to try to get that backup position, so you kick the first one. Right now, you got a lot of good offers coming in. So if
Okay.
you weren't the one chosen, you probably weren't chosen for a reason
Yeah.
over the other one, but it might have been really, really close. So you're just better off to go into the negotiations part and sit there, because a buyer can terminate a backup contract at any point in time for any reason. The seller can't. So you're locking the seller into giving you first position,
So
but
the
you
buyer
have no
says.
skin in the game. You can walk away
So
whenever
the buyer says, you know what? We found another place. Cancel my
Yep,
backup
Yep,
offer.
yep, just
Oh,
put it
really
in
good.
writing and cancel, as long as you haven't been the primary one.
Who's buying all these houses? Are people moving in from California or Texas, or are people here moving up? What's
We
going on?
actually have several people from California right now.
Really?
A lot of out-of-towners, but still we have those hedge funds in here trying to pick up some of the inventory as we speak.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is really. How are we doing on inventory?
Inventory's low.
Good.
It's low.
Good.
He's like, yes, keep it low. Yeah. So, but we
It's gonna be one more here in a
we
day or
are
two.
utilizing that withheld piece. So, just like what you did, we parked your house in a listing position
Right.
without wasting days on the market, but we're able to then kind of tip our toe in the water,
Right.
prepare the house, gather some other interest, and kind of do a slow move into the market. A lot of people that are kind of iffy about what to do right now might want to consider sitting down and talking with us about that option.
Right. Yeah.
And then, hey, if the needle in the haystack turns up, or your unicorn buyer, it might make you want to go ahead and go full force.
Right.
If not, you're not necessarily committed to do.
But the buyers are as strong as ever.
Stronger. The
Really.
interest rates looming over people's heads, they're pushing.
Well, that's the
buyers
other
out
thing
into
too,
the
right? So people are locked in at a lower rate for
Right.
90 days.
Right.
So there's a bit of a feeding frenzy in a sense.
And all these younger homeowners or home buyers, the rental rates are going ridiculously up, and there's no cap to those.
Right.
So if they can get into a house right now, get a fixed mortgage rate, well, they're still 5% or under,
Right.
then they're gonna be much better off in the long run than being stuck in an escalating rent.
You know what I learned, Kelly Jackson? Call Kathy Helbig. I've done this. She's my secret weapon. She also, your team has kept me sane, which is not easy to do.
It's not an easy
That's
task.
a tough one, because I actually came into this process crazy, and they made me saner, which is hard to do. 314-2760, 314-2760, or KathyHelbigGroup.com. Good stuff as always.
You guys.
7:50.